Down in the big border state of Texas, a bizarre tango unfolds, spiraling into madness on the dusty banks of the Rio Grande. The digital war drums pound as calls for civil war echo through the corridors of social media. The man at the center of this sandstorm, Governor Greg Abbott, a self-styled Lone Ranger, standing defiant against the might of the Biden administration and the Supreme Court's decree. The bone of contention, a snarling, twisted mess of razor wire strung along the Texas frontier, glinting under the unforgiving sun, a metallic serpent meant to ward off the tide of human souls seeking solace on American soil. To some, these immigrants embody the American dream, the idea of coming to America without a penny in your pocket and becoming something. To others, they represent an invading horde of ne'er-do-wells looking to stir up big trouble in little America. The Supreme Court, those black-robed arbiters of fate, declared open season on Abbott's steel dragon. Tear it down, they decreed, making Biden's day. But Abbott, with a wild glint of rebellion in his eyes, cried foul. He paints Biden as a deserter, a commander abandoning his post and betraying the sacred scroll of immigration law. With a flourish of his pen and a tip of his hat to self-defense, Abbott lays his claim, declaring Texas a fortress unto itself, a lone star in the dark night, repelling the so-called invasion with barriers of steel and resolve to match. This spectacle, my friends, is more than a mere squabble over policy. It's a high-stakes showdown at the constitutional Corral, a dance with destiny that could very well redraw the lines of power in the tattered remnants of the once mighty America. Hold on to your 10-gallon hats, buckaroos, because this rodeo, she's just getting started. A motley crew of GOP governors have joined Abbott in his act of defiance against the powers that be, proclaiming the president is in dereliction of his duty to the Constitution. A curious amnesia seems to afflict the ranks of the grand old party. The Supreme Court, the grand Coliseum of justice, is heralded as the ultimate interpreter of the Constitution, the sacred scripture of the land. But they've already made their decision and they're siding with Biden. If the ultimate interpreters of the Constitution have sided with your enemy, then you do not get to declare that it's your enemy who reviles the document. It just plumb don't make no sense. Perhaps Greg Abbott was too busy fingering his prick under his desk to remember that lesson in civics class. Or maybe he's just a political vampire who don't give a shit which way the wind blows, so long as it blows Betty Sue's skirt up. I reckon his integrity works about as good as them legs of his. When I first heard about this here fiasco, I did a little Sherman posting on Twitter saying we ought to go scorched earth on Abbott's crippled ass. But them righties didn't like the cut of my jib and made some fine points against me. They made mention of the fact that I'm a fat fucking loser, which put me in my place, because I'm sure that if I was as fit as a fiddle, if I was one muscular hombre with deltoids for days, they'd have agreed with me completely and respected my opinion. They also pointed out that I'm somewhat of a degenerate oddball of unsavory moral character, a charge I wholeheartedly cop to without a blink of hesitancy, but I don't rightly see how that has a damn thing to do with the price of rice in China, my friends. And the only argument of substance they dredged up was the fact that General William Tecumseh Sherman was a racist bastard himself, and would more likely cotton to their side than to mine. To which I'd retort that Sherman's racism towards blacks back in the day didn't stop him from stomping a mud hole in the South's ass. At the end of the day, whatever his feelings might have been, Sherman was a tool of the U.S. government, and he did what he was told, usually in the bloodiest way he could. But I'll tell you the truth, my right-wing hombres. The more I think about your side of things, the more I do see my own hypocrisy. Because the God's honest truth of the matter is that if the robed arbiters of reality had come down bad on an issue in my book, and Gavin Newsom was the one waving his middle finger at Washington, well, I'd think he was just about as based as butterscotch. So in light of that, how can I truly condemn y'all? I wanted to tell you the lie, that this ain't even about immigration no more. It's about keeping our all-American shit together. We can't just go higgledy-piggledy defying the Supreme Court. But what do I really give a shit about them be-robed nitwits? I don't. The issue here, as far as my big white ass is concerned, is immigration and immigrants. Y'all see them folks coming up from Mexico and Venezuela and Guatemala and so on as a horde of snaggle-toothed demons here to rape and pillage their way across the lands. I see them as mostly honest folk looking to make a better life for themselves in the land of the free and the home of the brave. If and you look at even a lick of data on the subject, my view is way more bolstered than y'all's is. Fact of the matter is, illegal immigrants steer clear of criminal activity once they're here because they ain't looking to get deported back to whatever shitholes they was running from in the first place. And they can't vote, so the idea they're here to boost Democrat odds in elections don't really hold much water neither. Even if they could vote, a whole mess of them Hispanics in this country ain't even Democrats in the first place. A lot of them are big old MAGA fans, just like your lily white ass. I really don't see the reason y'all are so sour on these folks crossing over that river, acting like you're being invaded just because some Jorge wants to mop the 7-Eleven down the road. It's a weird fucking invasion if it is one. Invade a country and then clean its gutters and paint its fences. That's about as scary to me as apple pie cooling in a windowsill. I'm gonna close this little rant by reminding you of some words written on the Statue of Liberty, over there where I'm betting a good chunk of y'all's ancestors come from. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. There weren't no razor wire around the Statue of Liberty. It was just a big old welcome sign. And from January 1st, 1892, up until November 12th, 1954, over 12 million immigrants passed through that island and became Americans. And for most of that time, it wasn't no big hullabaloo like it is today. You showed up at Ellis Island, you got you a brief little medical exam, they held your balls and your cough, asked you some basic questions about how you plan to support yourself, then they wrote your name down in a little book and let you on in. It took a few hours. Prior to them few hours on Ellis Island, y'all's ancestors was sausage-munching Germans, noodle-slurping Italians, beret-wearing Frenchies, beer-guzzling Irish, Torah-clutching Jews, and a whole slew of other assorted nationalities. And why did they come here? Because they were poor as dirt, looking for some goddamn all-American economic opportunity. Because a lot of these countries they come from was tumultuous shitholes, full of political unrest and all that jazz. Same reason folks are crossing the Rio Grande right now. And don't think for a second things was less racist back then. Things was more racist. The modern concept of being white hadn't even been cooked up yet, and so Italians hated Irish, Irish hated Germans, everyone hated everyone else's stinking, rotten, no-good guts. And if you look at some old anti-immigration cartoons from back in the day, you can see the argument ain't changed that much. Like, look at this cartoon here. It just hates everybody, from the Polish vagabond to the German socialist to the Italian brigand to the English convict to the Irish pauper. The idea was that these undesirables would ruin this great nation of ours. I think it's a damn shame that now the great-great-grandkids of these very immigrants, that's y'all, are turning around and giving a new crop of immigrants the same shabby treatment, but even worse. Because at least your ancestors weren't being brutalized with fucking razor wire. The way I figure it, Native Americans have got a right to complain about immigrants. But the rest of us just ain't got no room to talk. We are goddamn immigrants. And if you don't like it, then you just don't like the goddamn truth.